Hi, everyone, and welcome to this year's hashtag See Arthritis event, hosted by Arthritis consumer experts and pushed through our video channel, Arthritis Broadcast Network. This is our 10th year broadcasting from the Canadian Rheumatology Association and Arthritis Health Professions Association annual scientific meeting, and it gives me incredible pleasure to be here today with you with Dr. Jasmin Ma. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ma.
Oh, Cheryl, the pleasure is always mine. Always.
Oh, I love it. You can tell we've got a mutual fan club happening
That's
here.
right.
Let me tell our audience a little bit about you, Dr. Ma. Dr. Jasmin Ma, she's an assistant professor of teaching and exercise, prescription, and program design at the University of British Columbia's School of Kinesiology. She is a clinician investigator at Arthritis Research Canada, who happens to be ACE's scientific partner. And her areas of teaching and research focus on strength training, behavior change science, and integrated knowledge translation, which is a mouthful, but she's going to tell us a bit more about that in, I think, probably more friendly lay terms. So that's a bit about our esteemed guest today. Again, thank you for joining us, Dr. Mott.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to dive right in.
Let's do it.
Let's start with something that's fairly basic. Tell our audience, situate you in the world of rheumatology, if you will. Tell us, what planet you are in the galaxy.
What planet do I come from?
What planet do you come from?
I come from the planet of fun and physical activity.
I love it.
Yeah, so Cheryl, again, thank you so much for having me today. And yeah, where am I sort of situated in this area? As you mentioned, I'm a clinician investigator with Arthritis Research Canada. And a lot of what I really love to do is in the space of physical activity and especially strength training. Physical activity is the broad umbrella of movement, and equally important are kind of some of the subcomponents that we want to make sure that we get across those movement categories. And one of those special ones is strength training or muscle strengthening. So admittedly, it's hard to do. There are lots of different things that make it challenging, whether it's knowing what sort of exercises we should do, how do I do it in a way that's safe, how do I access equipment, what have you. So my realm is in working as myself. I'm a kinesiologist, but also on the research front. How do we help people to start and stick to strength training? That's really where my passion lies there.
It's a life skill. It's not just in arthritis where it's important. And it's very important in all types of arthritis. It's important for life. It's just, I'm very lucky to have been part of a high performance sport program. And I started lifting weights when I was 13 years old. And it's funny, I just cannot get up in my day. And one of the, I think about it on a Sunday. What's the week going to be like? And it's the first thing I plan before I do anything else.
Yeah.
I plan, when am I going to work out? What's that workout going to look like? I got to make sure I get some strength stuff in, et cetera, et cetera. It's in my DNA, but that's not true for everyone. Because back in the day, we didn't understand how important actual strength training was to the longevity and wellness overall of our lives. And can you maybe just talk about that for a minute, and then we'll go and talk a bit more specifically about what you're going to do at this year's meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, Cheryl, like you live and breathe this, you understand the value and the importance of strength training. You've seen the benefits. And so there's those anecdotal experiences that are really important to draw from upon. But we also have the evidence to support the value of strength training, whether that, is specifically for people with arthritis, where we see decreases in, for example, pain and fatigue, but also more generally, obviously we improve strength, which allows us to help maintain our independence. But even more so now, what we're seeing come out in the evidence is the value of strength training for prevention of chronic disease. It used to be thought that aerobic exercise was really the only way, going for a walk, going for runs,
Yeah,
swimming,
exercise your heart.
cardio.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That was like, that's the only way that we can help, in terms of movement and how we prevent, cardiovascular disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes. But we're seeing more and more now that strength training also plays a role in decreasing the risk for those types of disease. And so, yeah, it's got a lot of value for us. And I want to share too, and I don't share this as like doom and gloom scary, but just to
Yeah.
highlight the importance of strength training. So sarcopenia, it's sometimes called this sort of age-related decline in muscle mass and function, but it's not just an age-related decline. It's really an accelerated decrease in our muscle size, but also how well it's able to function. So it might even get to the point where we're not able to do our activities of daily living for people who might be living with sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is actually 16 times more likely to be experienced by someone with rheumatoid arthritis than someone without rheumatoid arthritis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm motivated now. I'm even
Yeah, right.
more
We're bought
motivated.
in. We're bought in. So, yeah, and one of the best ways to either help prevent sarcopenia or even manage or slow the decline of sarcopenia is strength training.
So tell us what sarcopenia is, because some of our audience members don't know.
Yeah, so it's to be defined with sarcopenia is that we see decrease in how big our muscles are,
Okay.
how well our muscles are, like how strong they are, and then ultimately the worst sort of the most severe is where our function is actually affected, where we're not
Yeah.
able to do the things that we would typically do in our day-to-day.
Yeah, and you hear people who age, I'm one of them, and they say, oh boy, I can really feel it in my body now. And,
Mm,
we need people to understand, and this is a real focus of your work in knowledge translation, is to be able to get out these scientific messages in ways that make sense to me and that I can action.
yeah.
Because that message is highly motivational for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, you mean if I don't keep doing this, my risk, I have rheumatoid arthritis, as you know, for almost 35 years now, goes up. And what happens as a result of that is Cheryl Cohen can't keep living her life
Yeah.
the way I want to live it. I
Yeah.
want to be active. I want to keep walking my dog. I want to be able to lift her. She's 50 pounds. I want to be able to put her up and down in the car as she ages. I want to
Yeah.
be able to, get out there and kick a soccer ball around or
Yeah.
swing a bat or whatever it is that's sports related. So thanks for that definition. Thanks for telling us what the result of sarcopenia is in a way that our audience can understand it. Tell us what your sort of focus is at this meeting. And this meeting is really all about shared decision making. There's
Mm-hmm.
a fancy title for it, but I just think the meaning behind the title of the meeting is really about coming together
Yeah.
to talk about, learn from each other, and encourage practice of shared decision making, no matter what the discipline is, whether it's in exercise physiology, kinesiology, knowledge translation, rheumatology. What does that mean to you, and what is it you're doing at the meeting specifically?
Yeah. Yeah. So this idea of, collaboration and shared decision making, really it's about making sure that everyone who's participating in this has decision making power.
Yeah,
And really it's an appreciation that we get better outputs when we collaborate. So yeah, that's, the general premise of coming together and being able to co-create what it is that we have for solutions, we know is really valuable. So yeah, what we sort of focus on and what we delivered at our pre-course meeting
yeah,
was a bit of a conversation around what are the considerations for doing strength training with rheumatoid arthritis. So things that we should keep in mind to be able to do strength training safely when we're in a flare, maybe when we're monitoring pain, those different things. But then also, not to just focus on, how do we make strength training sound safe, but also what are the strategies that we can make our strength training programs to be successful?
Yeah.
Being adaptable, being flexible, giving
Being
options,
fun, being
being
fun.
fun, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. So yeah, so the sort of general premise and what this has sort of culminated towards, we've been working crazy, actually, Cheryl, to think about this. We've been working on this since 2018, uh,
wow.
putting together this work called the iStart Toolkit. So we have a fantastic group that really drives this. And so don't let me take all the credit for this. Like is team effort here. Yes, we have researchers, but we also have people with lived experience. So people who are living with arthritis, as well as clinicians, and some people wear multiple hats in our group. And they've helped us to develop from start to finish here an understanding of what are the things that make strength training hard, but what are the things that also make strength training easier?
Yeah,
And how do we put this into a usable tool? So we now have a series of videos who feature people with and without rheumatoid arthritis, exercising with some recommended exercises that our group has come up with. We have a tool that helps to, one, provide some education on how to do strength training and how to prescribe strength training. So these two sort of complementary toolkits, one for health and exercise professionals and one for people living with arthritis, specifically rheumatoid arthritis in this case. And so there's the education piece, but then there's also, as you mentioned, shared decision making is a big part of it. So the second piece of the tool is how do we have this conversation together?
yeah.
So it includes some guiding questions that we can then co-create a strength training program. So yeah, that's a little bit about the iStart
Yeah,
toolkit. Came
it's
from.
super cool. I think you may recall that 2 years ago, the CRA's great debate was on who should prescribe physical activity to people living with a rheumatic disease. And the
Mm,
conversation, is it a rheumatologist? Is it a physiotherapist? Is it an exercise therapist? Is it a nurse? Who is it? Who's going to take ownership
mm,
over the conversation? Not ownership, but leadership, perhaps. Who's
sure.
going to take leadership? Because I'll tell you, Dr. Ma, it still is one of the least discussed things. And one of the things that people like me, want to hang on to
Mm,
almost the most.
yeah.
Because so much of society is engaged in something outdoors, something indoors, like at a gym or a pool. People want to crawl down to the ground and play with their
Yeah.
grandkids and be able to get back up.
Yeah.
This is all the stuff of our lives. And no one who is a doctor or a healthcare professional in our space historically has been wanting to take the lead. So following that, we ran a survey. We'll put a link on the screen at the end along with any recommended readings that you would like to offer the audience. But it was really interesting who people preferred to receive that
Mm.
exercise prescription from. I'm not going to reveal, you have to go and read the report from our survey. There's a
Hang
little
on the edge of our seat.
a little teaser, right? I'm trying to build membership, build audience. But all of that to say, we did another survey specific to osteoarthritis. And do you know what only a quarter of the people who answered our survey said their family doctor talked to them about exercise or nutrition.
Wow.
And in a way, those are the modifiable risk factors that people like me can take a hold of.
Yeah.
And they didn't even make the conversation stream.
Mm.
And that to me is like a tragedy. And we have to change this. And it's people like you and the knowledge translation end of what you do, I think, that moves that dial. When you think about your own practice, like the work you do patient to patient,
Yeah.
how how do you make shared decision making happen?
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
you can
Great
just
question.
anonymize one of the folks you work with and kind of figure, because it's different for every single one of us. We're all
Yeah.
snowflakes. We
Yeah.
all come to you, right? We all come to you with a different, um, what is our steady state at the time of
Yeah.
physical
Yeah.
wellness. We all come to you with different cultural backgrounds and beliefs. We all come to you with stress and, perhaps even mental wellness challenges, et cetera, et cetera. We're snowflakes. So
Yeah.
how do you wrap shared decision making around me and make me feel part
Mm.
of it with you?
Yeah, it's a great question, Cheryl. And
Yeah.
I think part of it starts from valuing different forms of expertise. I'll never forget Alison Hones, credit to her, had said to me at one time,
A hero to us all, a hero
I
to
know, right? Like everyone loves Alison, right? She said, you have a PhD in exercise prescription, but I have a PhD in lived experience. So we both have something to bring to the table.
you view the people that come into your clinic as having PhDs.
They're experts.
That's the starting
Multiple
point for your
disease
shared
vetted.
decision-making conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Allison, wherever you are.
Yeah. I'll let her know we were talking about her. Ears are
Yeah, yeah,
burning.
is she
We've
next
got a
door?
fair bit all
Yeah.
here.
That's fantastic. So, and then from there, I guess you begin the conversation and you start, it's an iterative process, isn't it? You ask
Yeah.
questions, they respond, you check back to make sure you're hearing them correctly. And then you start building plans.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is like there's a lot of training that goes into being able to have these shared decision making conversations well. And so,
Yeah,
when I'm teaching, entry to practice, future kinesiologists, I oftentimes use teachings in motivational interviewing where it's really sort of a client-centered
yeah,
approach to how we have these conversations. And it's really more about, as the practitioner, we're just asking the right questions um, to help, bring about more of that conversation. And then I think the second piece to that as well, in addition to using some of those principles in the spirit of motivational interviewing, being compassionate, accepting, making sure that we're approaching this as partners, and seeking more and more to learn more about our clients. But the second piece too is just giving options in how we can communicate. So I think that's one of the things that we've learned about the iStart toolkit is it gives people the opportunity to share some of what they want to talk about with their health and exercise professional, in a written format where you've got some time to jot down these points. Like, I don't know, Cheryl, I'm sure you've been there. I know every time I go to a health professional, I'm like, okay, I have all these things that I want to talk about. And then I get there and I'm like, I can't remember
they
any of it.
evaporate. Yeah, having a
Evaporate,
written list is
right?
so important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, have that opportunity to express yourself in a written manner, but it also allows both of us to come to the table with more preparation, right? If I can get that information in advance of a session, then if I have to do some more evidence-informed practice to do my homework, great, I've got that opportunity and helps us to then spend that time digging deeper beyond the surface.
yeah.
And so, yeah, helps to expedite the conversation, but also gives different opportunities and ways to engage.
How do you make sure that what you do in the way of teaching future kinesiologists this, but people, working with me, someone like you working with someone like me, how do you make certain that how you're talking to people like me is culturally appropriate, is respectful of my gender identification, my tell us about because the people there is a whole group of people who are underserved because they're not welcomed into the that practice world for a multitude of reasons. And I know you're very involved in equity, diversity, and inclusion work. I know you've been doing lots of learning and relearning around truth and reconciliation. Tell us a little bit, Dr. Ma, about that. Because as I said, we're all snowflakes and we
Yeah.
all want to be able to walk into a space and feel that it's culturally relevant to us, that it's hypersensitive almost to some of the things that have traditionally been ignored. How am I encouraged to do exercises that are traditional types of exercises?
Mm,
Dancing, for
yeah,
indigenous people, ceremonial dance is so important.
absolutely.
How do we make sure that this really is a representation of our human population in need of your kind of expertise?
Yeah. I think it really comes hand in hand with the question around shared decision making.
Okay.
So I think it's opening the floor for those conversations. And when we ask questions, we're also looking for what it is that you currently do for
Yeah.
movement, physical activity. What do you want to do? It's not here for us to superimpose, our ideals of what we should be doing for movement. If someone is open and interested for our opinion, that's a great opportunity to share.
Yeah.
It really is this bi-directional learning and being prepared to learn. I think that's one of the biggest take homes that I try to share with students, is that you will never stop learning.
Yeah.
It's a really cool part about our jobs. And with that is being open to feedback and being reflective, because we don't always get it right. But if we ask for feedback and we are reflective, then we can continue to grow. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I have the perfect answer, Cheryl. I have an answer that I continually shape as I learn more. But yeah, I think it does start with part of that shared decision making.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. And I think the thing you said last, which was life is a learning process, and no matter how expert we think we are, we can always learn more. And base level, we need to treat each other as human beings. People,
Yeah.
people who want to come into clinic and reveal. It's really hard as a patient to reveal yourself, even for me, someone who's been in the system as a patient for a long time. I still sometimes feel like there's not room for me to be vulnerable
Mm.
because it's really hard. And you're
Mhm.
vulnerable with people you trust, and we live in a jaded society, right? The news about healthcare isn't necessarily very welcoming. We're constantly hearing about shortages and overworked healthcare professionals and underserved patients. So the news around health isn't overly positive if you take a close look. And I guess I'm encouraging our audience members to understand there are so many people like you, Dr. Ma, out there who want to learn from us as patients in order to tailor the advice, tailor the care, support us in the ways that we say we need to be supported to be successful in staving off non-movement, if you will, or
Yeah.
weakened muscles. Instead of doing the Popeye flex, it's coming down
Yeah.
this way. Anyway, it's always so lovely to talk to you. What else in terms of kind of parting words to our audience, Dr. Ma? What do you see as some of the, when I was first diagnosed, I was told to sit at home and put my feet up and don't stress myself and don't do anything. Like put my
Right.
feet in a bucket of ice and, put these heating pads on your wrists. And I mean, I literally had a horrible onset of disease that led to pretty much incapacity, complete incapacity. And in actual fact, there was a point in time where I just stopped listening to my care providers because I'm an athlete and that's
Yeah.
in. And I thought, oh God, I don't care. I'm going to the gym. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do whatever I have to crawl over on the stationary bike. I put gloves on my hands to hide them. I wore sweatpants so nobody could see that my knees were the size of freakish size, soccer balls.
Yeah.
And I just slowly started, and you know what? Over all the years of research advances in your field, I learned I actually did the right thing.
Yeah.
That even high intensity exercise done safely is a good thing. So just intuitively, kept doing, and my physiotherapist back in the day, Dr. Ma, where their heads were in their hand, like, oh my God, what are you doing? And you know what? I'm still riding up Cypress Mountain on my bike.
That's right.
35 years later, I've had multiple surgeries. I've had my ups and downs, but I'm still doing it. And I guess I just share that with you and the audience to say, this is why shared decision making is so important. And I did have physios who stuck with me, who said, okay, well, let's protect you to the best of our
Yeah.
ability. And they said, okay, we'll see you later, you know. And I'd come in and tell them about my exploits. And it actually, we teach you guys so much because you hear what each of your snowflakes are doing out in the real world with their disease. And you're like, huh, you're not supposed to be able to do that, but you're doing it. Let's figure that out. And we help feed your research agenda, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So give us a one pearl, takeaway pearl for today. Like what have you seen in the last 5 years? What do you see right on the horizon line of
Mm.
we're going to have a link to your toolkit, by the way, and any information that you want to leave with our readership at the end here would be, I'm sure, very welcome by those who are viewing.
Yeah, no, absolutely appreciate that, Cheryl. And actually, we're running some research right now with the toolkit. So if anyone wants to provide feedback on that, we can
Oh,
do that information as
okay.
well.
So you've got a feedback opportunity.
You got it.
Yippee! Okay.
Yeah,
All righty. Well,
that's the process, right?
shoot me an email with all those links, and we'll make sure
Love
they're
it.
tacked onto the end.
Fabulous. So, well, yeah,
Okay.
my pearl, Cheryl, I would say is just to remember that something is always better than nothing.
Yeah.
And, this is, coming from many of the clients with rheumatoid arthritis that we've been working with over the years is it's about being flexible and being kind to yourself. If today's not the day, that's okay. Something is better than nothing. And then when we're thinking about strength training, it can be a lot to think about the hundreds or thousands of different exercises. But if you can think about something that looks like pushing, like opening doors, something that looks like pulling, like you're
Yeah.
removing garden weeds, if you're doing something where you're squatting or you're lunging, which is kind of like getting on and up out of the chair, right? Or you have some sort of hinge motion, like you're picking something up off the ground,
Yeah.
you're going to be in a pretty good place.
Yeah.
So if you can do movements that look like that and make them so that you're moving weight or resistance that doesn't feel like you could keep going forever.
That is
then you probably
the biggest, fattest, shiny pearl ever to close the segment. And I'm a type A person. I'm a type AAA athlete.
yeah.
And I always think it has to be like way up here in difficulty level, and I have to do the exact number of reps every single time. And you know what? I now think at my age, with my length of disease, I do have those days where I'm able to feel kind of the way I used to feel. And oh, this is a great day. I feel really strong. I'm going to keep doing this. And then, if I do something back to back 2 days in a row, and I'm trying to get through an exercise routine, and I really am starting to feel a bit not great. And then I think, well, but I just need to take myself through these range of motions. I won't do it with a weight in my, I'll do it with just my body weight. I'll
Yes.
lie down on the floor and I'll wrestle with my dog a little bit.
Amazing.
And while I'm down there, I'll stretch. And then, like I start playing a game with what I set out to do with my physical activity plan that day. And it gets morphed into like a Barnum and Bailey circus act, but
Yeah.
it works. And then I'm motivated to get back to something more regimented on my next exercise session.
That's right. That's right.
So I think that's your takeaway is that push me, pull,
Yeah.
squat,
Yeah.
sort of to the best of your ability, doing torso stuff. Yeah, amazing. We love you so much on this program and in life, Dr. Ma. We cannot thank you enough for joining us. So thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best.
Always a pleasure, Cheryl.
And
Love
we're gonna hook you into coming back in the studio soon.
always ready.
Okay.
Always ready for you, Cheryl.
You're an Action Jackson kind of gal. I love it.
That's right.
Okay. See you later, kid. Thank you so much, Dr. Ma. And thanks to you, our audience. We really appreciate you joining today's session.